The year was 701 BC. The mighty Assyrian Empire, known for its ruthlessness and military prowess, had set its sights on the kingdom of Judah. Their goal was simple: expansion and subjugation. Jerusalem, the capital of Judah, stood as a solitary beacon of defiance against this encroaching tide of conquest. The very foundations of the city, both physical and spiritual, trembled under the weight of the impending Assyrian invasion. The Assyrian army, a well-oiled machine of war, was renowned for its brutality. Their campaigns were characterized by scorched earth tactics, leaving behind a trail of devastated cities and shattered kingdoms. Tales of their cruelty were whispered in hushed tones, serving as grim warnings to those who dared to resist. The inhabitants of Jerusalem, facing the prospect of a siege, understood the gravity of their situation. They knew what awaited them if the Assyrians breached the city walls. Their fear was not unfounded. The Assyrians, under the command of their formidable king, Sennacherib, had already subjugated numerous cities and kingdoms. They possessed a seemingly invincible army, equipped with advanced weaponry and siege tactics. The very earth seemed to tremble under the weight of their advance. The shadow of the Assyrian army stretched long and menacing, a harbinger of the destruction that threatened to engulf Jerusalem. King Hezekiah, a righteous and devout ruler, found himself facing an impossible predicament. His kingdom, Judah, was under threat from the mighty Assyrian Empire, a force that had already conquered many lands and peoples. Hezekiah's faith and leadership were about to be tested like never before. The survival of his kingdom, his people, and his faith rested upon his shoulders. The weight of responsibility was immense, and the eyes of every citizen were fixed upon him, hoping for a miracle that would save them from the impending doom. He understood that the Assyrians were not merely interested in territorial gains. They sought to eradicate the worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel, and replace it with the worship of their own pantheon of deities. This was not just a physical battle, but a spiritual one, a clash of beliefs and divine allegiances. The situation within Jerusalem was becoming increasingly desperate. The once bustling city was now a place of fear and uncertainty. The streets that were filled with the sounds of daily life were now eerily quiet as the inhabitants awaited their fate. The city was surrounded, cut off from any outside help. The Assyrian army, known for its brutality and efficiency, had encamped around Jerusalem, creating an impenetrable barrier. No one could enter or leave, and the sense of isolation was palpable. Supplies were dwindling, and the constant threat of attack weighed heavily on the morale of the inhabitants. Food and water became precious commodities, rationed carefully to ensure they lasted as long as possible. The people of Jerusalem were growing weaker, both physically and mentally. Fear, like a creeping vine, began to take root in the hearts of even the most stalwart defenders. The uncertainty of their fate gnawed at their resolve, and whispers of doubt spread through the city like wildfire. Adding to Hezekiah's woes, Sennacherib, a master of psychological warfare, dispatched emissaries to the walls of Jerusalem. These emissaries were skilled in the art of intimidation and manipulation, and their presence was a constant reminder of the enemy's power. Their mission to demoralize the populace and sow seeds of doubt and despair. They spoke with confidence and authority, their words designed to break the spirit of the defenders and convince them that resistance was futile. They proclaimed the futility of resistance, boasting of Sennacherib's invincibility and the inevitable fall of Jerusalem. They recounted the tales of other cities that had fallen before the Assyrian might, painting a grim picture of what awaited Jerusalem. The emissaries' words, laced with venom and threats, were designed to chip away at the city's resolve. They promised destruction and death, hoping to break the will of the people and force them into submission. Hezekiah, though deeply troubled, refused to succumb to despair. He knew that his role as a leader was to inspire hope and courage even in the darkest of times. He turned to his faith, seeking guidance and strength from Yahweh. He knew that the fate of his people rested not in the strength of their defenses, but in the hands of their God. Hezekiah's faith was unwavering, and he believed that divine intervention was their only hope. He ordered the city's water sources secured, the walls fortified, and the people rallied for a desperate defense. Every able-bodied person was called upon to contribute to the city's defense, and a sense of unity and purpose began to take hold. But more importantly, he turned to the one source of hope that remained: prayer. Hezekiah led his people in fervent prayer, seeking Yahweh's protection and deliverance. The city, though besieged and weary, found solace in their faith, believing that their prayers would be answered. The people of Jerusalem turned to their sacred texts, finding comfort and hope in the words of their ancestors. The stories of past deliverances and divine interventions gave them strength, reminding them that they were not alone in their struggle. Hezekiah also consulted with his advisors, seeking their counsel on how best to defend the city. Together, they devised strategies and plans, determined to hold out against the Assyrian onslaught for as long as possible. The city prepared for battle, with every citizen playing a role in the defense. The sense of community and shared purpose grew stronger, and the people of Jerusalem stood ready to face whatever came their way. As night fell, the city remained vigilant. Watchmen kept a close eye on the enemy's movements, and the people prayed for a miracle. The tension was palpable, but so was the resolve to stand firm and protect their home. With the dawn of a new day, hope remained alive in the hearts of Jerusalem's inhabitants. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but their faith and determination gave them the strength to face the challenges that lay ahead. Sennacherib, drunk with past victories and convinced of his own invincibility, grew increasingly arrogant. His conquests had been numerous, and each victory only served to inflate his already massive ego. He saw himself as a force of nature, unstoppable and destined to dominate all who stood in his path. He saw himself as an instrument of destiny, a god-king destined to rule over all. In his mind, he was not just a king, but a divine entity, chosen by the gods to bring order to the world through his iron fist. His court was filled with sycophants who fed his delusions of grandeur, reinforcing his belief in his own divine right to rule. His heart hardened against the pleas for mercy from the besieged city of Jerusalem. The cries of the innocent, the desperate prayers of the faithful, all fell on deaf ears. To Sennacherib, these were the sounds of weakness, and he had no room for weakness in his empire. He believed that no force, human or divine, could stand against his might. His army was the most powerful the world had ever seen, a well-oiled machine of destruction that had crushed every foe in its path. The sight of his legions marching in perfect unison was enough to strike fear into the hearts of even the bravest warriors. To further demoralize the inhabitants of Jerusalem, Sennacherib sent his chief commander, Rabshakeh, to deliver a message of intimidation and blasphemy. Rabshakeh was a master of psychological warfare, and his words were carefully chosen to sow doubt and despair among the people. Rabshakeh, with a voice dripping with disdain, mocked Hezekiah's faith in Yahweh, claiming that the God of Israel was powerless to save them. He ridiculed their trust in divine intervention, painting a picture of inevitable doom that left the people of Jerusalem trembling. He pointed to the numerous gods of other nations who had failed to protect their people from the might of Assyria. Each ruined temple, each shattered idol, was a testament to the futility of resisting Sennacherib's power. Rabshakeh's message was clear. No god, no matter how powerful, could stand against the Assyrian war machine. Rabshakeh's words cut deep into the hearts of the people of Jerusalem. They had hoped for a miracle, a sign that their faith was not in vain, but now they were faced with the harsh reality of their situation. The fear and uncertainty that gripped them were palpable, a dark cloud that hung over the city. They had placed their trust in Yahweh, and now in their hour of need, their faith was being tested like never before. The people of Jerusalem turned to prayer, seeking solace and strength in their belief. They prayed for deliverance, for a sign that their God had not abandoned them. The Assyrian commander's words were like poisoned arrows, aimed at shattering their hope and forcing them into submission. Each taunt, each blasphemous claim was designed to break their spirit and make them question their faith. The psychological assault was relentless, a barrage of fear and doubt that left the people reeling. The air grew thick with fear and uncertainty. The once vibrant city was now a place of dread, its streets filled with whispers of doom. Families huddled together, seeking comfort in each other's presence as they awaited their fate. Sennacherib, in his arrogance, failed to recognize the true nature of the God he so readily dismissed. He saw Yahweh as just another deity, no different from the countless others he had defeated. His hubris blinded him to the reality of the situation, leading him to underestimate the power of the God of Israel. He had mistaken Yahweh's patience for weakness, his mercy for impotence. Sennacherib's arrogance was his greatest flaw, a fatal blind spot that would lead to his downfall. He believed that his victories were a sign of divine favor, never considering that they might be a test of his character. The Assyrian king would soon learn a bitter lesson, that the God of Israel was not to be mocked. His overconfidence would be his undoing, as he faced a power far greater than any he had ever encountered. The news that would reach him would shatter his illusions of invincibility and bring him face to face with the reality of his hubris. He was a God of justice and righteousness, a God who protected his people and punished the wicked. The people of Jerusalem would see their faith rewarded, as divine intervention turned the tide in their favor. Sennacherib's arrogance would be his downfall, a stark reminder that no man, no matter how powerful, is beyond the reach of divine justice. Faced with seemingly insurmountable odds, Hezekiah sought solace and guidance in the temple of Yahweh. The weight of his responsibilities as king pressed heavily upon him, and the looming threat of the Assyrian army cast a dark shadow over his heart. In these moments of profound vulnerability, Hezekiah turned to the one source of strength and wisdom he knew he could rely on. He humbled himself before God, laying bare his fears and anxieties. Hezekiah's prayer was a raw and honest outpouring of his soul, a plea for divine intervention in a time of great need. He did not hide his emotions or pretend to be stronger than he felt. Instead, he approached Yahweh with a heart full of humility and trust. He acknowledged the might of the Assyrian army, but also affirmed his unwavering faith in Yahweh's power to deliver his people. The Assyrians were known for their brutality and their seemingly unstoppable military force, yet Hezekiah's faith remained unshaken. He believed that no earthly power could stand against the will of the Almighty. Hezekiah's prayer was not one of desperation, but one of unwavering faith, a testament to his belief in the God who had never abandoned his people. His words were filled with conviction, a reflection of his deep-seated belief that Yahweh was both willing and able to save Jerusalem from destruction. Hezekiah understood that the battle was not his to fight alone. He recognized that true victory would come not through human strength or strategy, but through divine intervention. This understanding brought him a sense of peace, even in the face of overwhelming odds. He recognized that the true enemy was not the Assyrian army, but the spirit of pride and arrogance that fueled their aggression. Hezekiah saw beyond the physical threat to the spiritual battle that lay beneath. He knew that the Assyrians' confidence in their own power was their greatest weakness. He knew that only Yahweh could vanquish such an enemy. Hezekiah's faith was rooted in the belief that God alone had the power to humble the proud and bring justice to the oppressed. This belief gave him the courage to stand firm in his faith, even when the situation seemed dire. So he prayed, not just for deliverance, but for God's glory to be revealed, for his name to be exalted above all others. Hezekiah's prayer was a declaration of his desire to see God's power and majesty displayed for all to see. He longed for the nations to recognize Yahweh's sovereignty and to turn their hearts toward him. Through the prophet Isaiah, Yahweh delivered a message of reassurance and hope to Hezekiah. Isaiah's words were a beacon of light in the darkness, a reminder that God had not forgotten his people. The prophet's message was clear. Yahweh had heard Hezekiah's prayer and was moved by his faith. He declared that he had heard Hezekiah's prayer and had seen his tears. This divine acknowledgement was a powerful affirmation of Hezekiah's faith and sincerity. It was a reminder that God is always attentive to the cries of his people, and that he responds with compassion and grace. He promised to defend Jerusalem and deliver his people from the hand of Sennacherib. This promise was not just a pledge of physical protection, but a reaffirmation of God's covenant with his chosen people. It was a declaration that Yahweh's love and faithfulness would never waver, no matter the circumstances. This was not merely a promise of temporal deliverance, but a declaration of God's sovereignty over all nations and his unwavering commitment to his covenant with his chosen people. The promise to defend Jerusalem was a testament to God's ultimate authority and his enduring commitment to his people. Isaiah's words were like balm to the wounded spirit of Hezekiah and the people of Jerusalem. The prophet's message brought a sense of peace and reassurance, reminding them that they were not alone in their struggle. It was a powerful reminder of God's presence and his willingness to intervene on their behalf. Their hope, which had flickered precariously in the face of Assyrian threats, was rekindled. The people of Jerusalem found new strength in the promise of divine deliverance. Their faith was renewed, and their spirits were lifted as they looked forward to the fulfillment of God's promise. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and share. It's a small gesture, but one that is truly appreciated. And if you haven't already, come on over and join our family by subscribing to our channel. May God bless you and all your endeavors. Thank you for watching.